What's going on, everybody? Paddle and Fin has got a meetup going down October 16th through 18th at Eastport Marina and Resort in Alpine, Tennessee, which falls right on Dale Hollow. What we're going to be doing is just hanging out, fishing. Depending on the number of people that show up and the interest, we may do a small tournament. We will have some stuff to give away. Saturday evening, we're going to do a hangout and a little barbecue action. We'll have food for everybody. If you're looking for lodging, you could stay right at the resort. It's $50 per person per night. And what you get is your own personal bedroom on a houseboat, luxury houseboat, courtesy Eastport Marina. That's a special price they gave us to lend to our listeners. If you want more info on the resort, you can go to eastport.info and their website will pop up there. You'll see all the houseboats and things like that. A majority of our hosts are going to be there, and we would love to spend some time on the water with you.
This segment is brought to you by JigMasters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to JigMasters.com and use promo code PNF20 and save 20% off your next jig order today.
Welcome to the Bass Kayak and Beer segment on the Paddle and Fin Network. It's your host Armando Sola, and on this segment we kick back with a special guest and talk about life, kayak fishing, and the pursuit of big bass. So get your cold brews on and enjoy the show. Welcome once again to the Bass Kayak and Beers Network, presented by Douglas Rods. Go to douglasoutdoors.com to check out your nearest authorized dealer and to check out their full lineup of LRS rods and Matrix rods. So we got a special episode for you today. My special guest is Ross Pinkerton, just fresh from winning the KBBT Texas Regional and officially the Bass Baron. I almost said something that was going to come out bad. Bass Baron for Texas is here to join us. Russ, thank you so much for taking time. And first of all, congratulations on your big win in the KBBT Texas Regional.
Thanks, man. And thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
No problem, man. Thank you for taking the time. So Ross, first of all, before we dive into the KBBT and how it went and where you fish and how you got to winning it, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what got you into fishing, what do you do for a living also, and when did you start kayak fishing and all that?
Okay. So I'll start at the top. I started fishing when I was probably about 6 or 7 years old. Nice. My parents started taking me out on the Brazos River on canoe trips, and I would just sit in the front and cast my rooster tail around and catch a bunch of little fish. And that's all that I really wanted to do when I was a kid, So I do want to say thanks to them for kind of instilling that love for the outdoors in me at a young age. I definitely wouldn't be the angler that I am today without them. So that's what kind of got me started bass fishing. From there, I went to Arlington Heights High School. I played baseball. I was our district MVP my senior year, and I wasn't able to actually make baseball go further than high school due to injuries and other stuff. So I got into kayak fishing when I was probably about 18 or 19, about that same time. And it wasn't really a serious thing. It was just a hobby, another one of my hobbies. I really like the outdoors, all kinds of stuff, duck hunting, bass fishing, you name it. I've probably done it or would like to do it at some point in my life. So that's what got me started doing that. And then the way I make my living now is I'm actually a licensed irrigator. So I work on sprinkler systems. I repair sprinkler systems. I have my own sprinkler business. It's called Pinkerton Sprinkler Repair Company. So that's what I do, man. I work on sprinklers and I go bass fishing.
That's good. Awesome. What got you first of all into kayak fishing? What was the first time you went kayak fishing? How did that trip come about? If you remember.
It's been a long time, man. I think my dad bought a Wilderness Systems Ride 135 when I was like 16 or something. And I pretty much took that over. He thought he was going to take it out a bunch, and he found out real fast that I was going to take it out more than he did. So, that's what I started doing, and I took it on some I took it on some overnight trips by myself down on the Brazos. Did some actual duck hunting down there by myself with my dog. And that was probably one of my first fishing trips out of the kayak. Was actually the same spot that I fished the championship Sunday at.
Nice. Kind of going full circle with that.
Yeah, exactly.
If you don't mind me asking, what part of the Brazos River were you fishing out of?
So I was fishing the stretch below Possum Kingdom. And,
Oh, nice.
Yeah, there's a couple pretty good little spots down on that stretch that I wanted to go check out. I don't want to give exact locations, but
I understand.
I basically had to launch at the 16 bridge and then take out at the 16 bridge. So there you go. That pretty much narrows it down because you can only go so far upstream.
Yeah, Brazos. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you go for it, man.
No, Brazos River is one of my favorite rivers to fish over here, and it's obviously a different section. Like I've gone through the bottom of Whitney Lake, and that section is like full of grass. It's like frog heaven. I love that area. But then I went to I think it's still the Brazos, right? It's not Possum Kingdom. Crap, which was it? It's not Whitney Lake. God, I had it on my mind. I just forgot. What's the other reservoir that goes? It's Possum Kingdom.
Granbury.
Now, no, I've done Granbury. I hate Granbury. I can't catch a fish out of Granbury, man. I don't know what. I was gonna fish for a tournament there, and I pre-fished it for like 3 times. I didn't catch anything, and I was like, I ain't even going to show up for this. So I'm gonna do. And actually, that was the same day I started with the KBBT Texas Regional, which I went to Lake Fork. Yeah, so that was the same day I had the Granbury. I was like, I thought, okay, well, I'll go Granbury. Hopefully I'll do good and I'll win 2 tournaments or at least. But after pre-fishing, I was like, there's no way I can make it past that first round on Granbury. It's not. But no, it's not. Oh crap! What is it? Anyways, it'll come to my mind later. But yeah, I love Brazos River. At least some sections of it. But definitely, yeah. If you're in Texas, you definitely have to check out Brazos River. So KBBT. First impressions, how was it? What did you like about it? What did you love? What did you not? I'm not going to say hate because that's a strong word, but maybe things that you thought, this could be better or stuff like that. If there's anything you think.
It was a pretty well-run tournament.
Yeah.
The only thing I would say is that if you make it to the Final Four, you're going to be fishing for 4 days. And at the end of that, there's only a certain payout. So you kind of put in a lot of work for maybe not as much money as you were hoping.
Yeah.
But, that's just the way that thing goes, with a $45 entry fee. And if you win, you make it to the next round. Well, if you keep winning, you're going to do a lot of fishing for the same amount of money, So
yeah.
That may be the only downside I could see. Other than that, it was ran pretty well. Greg, Chris Delgado, and Mark Coates and all those guys did a pretty good job of putting it together. And everything was pretty straightforward and honest, and I don't really have any complaints about it. I thought it was pretty fun.
Yeah, it is. I liked it. Christopher and Marcus Coates bring a lot of personality, and so does Greg Nosar. He's the one who pretty much runs it. And what I like about him, he's always trying to give the anglers, an opportunity to showcase themselves. If there's anglers out there that are looking to, promote themselves and get sponsors, stuff like that, he does a real good job of it. And it's a new I guess the knockout stage kind of thing is not new to American sports, but obviously it is new to kayak fishing, and there's always things that are going to be tinkered and improved and going to get better at. But for the most part, I agree with you. It's a great product. It's a great opportunity for anglers out there that can't travel too much to kind of be able to put a tournament that'll actually get him some face time, in social media. I love the one-on-one. One thing that I thought, and I'm not saying it because that would have got me to a second round, because regardless, all I got I think was just under 50. I can't remember, 40 something inches. I only caught 3. But the only thing that I thought is I saw after the first round there were one angler in particular. I'm not gonna say names because I'm not here to diss on anybody, but like end up going through because on 36 inches because his opponent only had 29, and then one, I can't remember who it was, ended up not going through the next round, and he almost had 80. So that's the only thing that I thought is like, man, to a certain degree, it's the luck of who you're going to get to draw with,
Right.
And that's the only thing that I from a competitor standpoint, I would change is like instead of going 1-on-1, okay, let's do a round of 32 and the top 16 pass go to the next round.
Right.
And then 16, the top 8 pass to the next round. 8. That's the only thing, but that's from a angler's perspective. I understand Greg Nozar, Christopher DeGala, and Mark Coates have to look for what's going to bring more attention. And obviously the one-on-one, mano-a-mano, angler versus angler thing is more interesting as far as growing the sport in social media and getting attention. So, it's one of those things where you weigh in. But other than that, it's that was my 2 cents, but it is still a great opportunity to fish, and anybody that's kind of on the fence to try it, I would definitely recommend to try the Greg Knowles, especially in Texas. Obviously, with particulars, you and I are from Texas, but Christopher DeGala, shout out to him, and Mark Coates for doing a great job.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, they both did a really good job, and that just kind of reminds me of my round 2. I actually fished the same lake with Hayden Crossnow. And he caught 87.5 inches, and I only caught 78 inches, and he ended up losing, and I ended up moving forward. So
yeah,
it's just the way it goes with this style of bracket, But it was a fun event for sure, and every time I moved forward, I was kind of like, okay, we made it to the next round, and then we just kept making it to the next round, and then before I knew it, I was in the Final Four with Jeff Isham and Dwayne Taff and Marcus Coates, and everybody's like, who's this Ross guy?
Yeah. Yeah, those are big names.
Yeah.
Marcus Coates has been turning it up lately. His honey hole is producing massive numbers, man. Right. He got dialed in, I think it's Toledo. I can't remember what it is, but golly. Yeah, he's turning it up out there. So yeah, no small accomplishment going against those 3 guys. Very well known in Texas, definitely hammers as far as it's considered here in Texas, and putting godly numbers there. So let's go through like round by round. Which, if you don't mind sharing where you were, not exactly, but first round, where did you end up going?
Okay, so round 1, I went to Lake Whitney. And,
Lake Whitney, cool.
Sure, and I had fished the first KBBT ever event. I went out there my first round, and I caught like 93 inches. So I had a really good day out there my first time. And I had probably fished Lake Whitney 3 or 4, maybe 5 times before this event came up. So I kind of was familiar with the fish out there. I really thought I was going to get on a good glide bait bite the same way I did on the Brazos my final day. Ended up not exactly working out for me on Whitney with that. I had to kind of, switch courses and throw a wacky rig instead of throwing that glide bait around, and just to fill out a limit. And that small limit that I caught, I think it was only 72 inches, but it was one of those deals where the other guy just didn't put up a limit. So I ended up making it to the next round just with 72 inches and a bunch of little small ones pretty much. But hey, it worked out great, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to go to Whitney in the first place. Was I knew even if I couldn't catch a bunch of big ones, there was definitely lots of fish there to be caught, and I knew I could catch a limit for sure. Cool.
Do you mind saying what part of Whitney? If you want to keep it a secret, that's fine.
That's fine. It was mid-lake, kind of close to where the bridge crosses. That's just about, I was fishing main lake pockets, if that gives you any ideas. Yeah.
Yeah, I know kind of the area. I've usually fished close to the to dam and those little fingering creeks. Not had a lot of luck, but a beautiful lake, by the way. Huge striper, man. Every time I hook into something like, is this a striper or is this a bass? Because they have huge stripers there and hybrids.
There's a lot of striper in there. In fact, I was out there once, and they were just, literally a school of them was right underneath me the whole time I was fishing in the morning. But man, if you get out there towards those main lake pockets and you focus on those really big points and those drop offs with a glide bait or a jerk bait, you'll catch some big bass for sure. That's what I've been. In fact, I got it right here, man. Look, this
that's that's the juice right there.
If you just throw it past those points and reel it real slow, and it's just big and dumb, and it looks easy, and the bass come out and just smash it. So
I got a couple of those. I'm gonna have to try. You know what? You sold me, because I was actually tomorrow, my day off. I'm gonna go. I was thinking, where do I want to go fishing tomorrow? And Whitney was kind of like on my top of the list, but I was like, maybe I want to go closer. But you know what? I'm gonna go to Whitney tomorrow. Then I'm gonna throw that Glad some points. I'll hit you up for some coordinates after with the show.
Absolutely, I'll hook you up, bro. Make long casts with it and reel it slow. That's all I can say.
Awesome. We'll talk. So second round, where did you ended up going, and how did you do, and what worked for you?
All right, so I'm not allowed to disclose my location on the second and third rounds.
Okay, no worries then.
It's not, and it's not like I caught a whole bunch of fish. I think I got 70 in the 70s both rounds, but it's just one of those lakes where it's within a couple hours of Fort Worth, and not a whole lot of people know about it, but it's a really good fishery, and I've promised a couple of people not to disclose.
No worries.
Go into that.
Totally respect that.
Okay, sure. So, but it's a grass lake. It's full of grass, and I was catching them on a frog. I was catching them on a topwater, and some finesse baits like a Cinco and stuff like that. Actually, my last, I think round 3, I caught some on a shaky head. They were kind of moving out of the grass, and that was the hard part about it, is because you couldn't just go in the grass and catch them, because the grass was just all over the place, and they were kind of transitioning out of the grass, going into those more rocky style places, those deeper water spots, and that's what I had to do. I had to switch over from throwing a frog and grass fishing, power fishing the grass, to really kind of slowing down and picking apart these little rocky points and little drop-offs and stuff like that. And that's the only way I was able to make it to the Final Four, was just finesse fishing and really, really slowing down.
Cool, man. Yeah, it's interesting how it all played out for me, and not to take away from what you're saying, not to steal your thunder. My first round, I went to Lake Fork, and I was super confident about what I had. And I started off great, man. First 30 minutes, I already had 29 inches. It was just back to back, but the bite shut down. And the spot, there's a spot in Lake Fork that I always go that it's just like, that's my spot. And it was, since I started, I could see, because I started right before sunup, and I could see the line of boats just kind of like coming in and out of that spot. I'm like, there's no way. There's no way. There's like 5 boats trying to get into that spot. So I went afterwards by noon, and by then I think the bite had moved further deeper and out of those creeks. But it was interesting. I know I went against JR McCubby.
Mm-hmm.
I hope I pronounced that. If not, please apologize. I have to apologize to JR. But he was telling me he was struggling, but he still put up 89 inches. But I know, talking to some of the anglers, they were all struggling that first round. It was a hard. Jeff Isham struggled mightily. His opponents struggled a lot more. I think probably more than anybody, and that's what got him, Jeff Isham, to the next one. Not to take anything away from Jeff, a great angler, probably one of the best in Texas. But definitely was a tough bite that first week. It seems to be that transition is taking a little bit. That transition to fall weather bite is taking, I want to say, longer, but it's not there yet. Like, I know a couple of anglers who were talking, and they were like, yeah, man, it should be good that fall, because it cooled off a bit, but then it had like a, like a cold front come in for like Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday.
Yeah.
And then it heated up a lot. I remember I was at the lake. The water temperature was 79 at 6:30, and it went up to 86 I think by 10 a.m. or by noon, at least it was in the 86. So it was very different than we usually get to see in Texas around that time, just because of that cold front that came in early. And I don't know, it threw everything away. But some guys really got it figured out, like we saw in the first round.
Absolutely. This time of year is pretty hard to fish, just because of what you're saying. The fish don't really know what to do. They're like, okay, it was 50 degrees last night, but now it's going to be 100 degrees today. So it's, where do we go? So, that's the kind of situations where I like to really slow down and finesse fish, just because they're not going to be eating those power baits like a chatterbait or a spinnerbait. If you're burning that stuff before, now they're not going to be on that anymore. So, and they don't really like to eat topwaters too much in this time of year either. I've noticed. I mean, right at the very beginning, now we're kind of getting into it a little bit better. I was, especially after the bag I caught on Sunday, I really think the fish are turned on. But now is the time of year where I want to go out there and I want to throw that glide bait as much as I can. I want to throw a topwater. I want to focus on the backs of those creeks and really find those big schools of fish that are going to be feeding up for the winter.
Cool. So the final 4 was all in one lake, right?
So it was going to be all on the same lake, and then they asked all the anglers at the before the Elite 8, they asked us all to take a vote on Facebook Messenger if we wanted to fish the same lake or if we all wanted to fish our home lakes. And it ended up being that most of the people chose to fish their home waters. I actually voted for same lake because I felt like I would have a better chance, competing against these other guys who they've been fishing their honey holes, their little spots, and they've been putting up these crazy numbers. Put us on the same body of water and we'll see who comes out on top. That's what I wanted to do. It didn't end up working out that way, but it still worked out in my favor. But, we were supposed to have it all on the same lake, but it didn't end up being that way.
Yeah, I since I didn't make the Elite 8, I didn't know that. Yeah. I don't know. I have to think about that to pass judgment on that decision. Because to me, it's like if you started off saying that's what the rule is, then to me, then you should have stuck with that. Yeah. Having said that, I give props to Greg again and Chris for taking a vote, and letting the anglers choose. That's also cool as well. But yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Well, awesome. So, go ahead.
Well, the reason that I think they wanted to give people an opportunity to vote is because a lot of people were signed up for Guntersville, other big tournaments, and they were going to be leaving, and it just wouldn't have been very easy for them to fish both of the events. So they wanted to make it easier for people to do that. I know Doc Acosta was one of those that just he was already signed up and he was planning on leaving like a long time before the tournament started, and that if we had all had to fish the same lake, it would have really messed him up on that. So, it just is what it is, and it worked out pretty well, I think.
Yeah, no, for you, it's awesome. Yeah, no, and that's the thing. That's why I don't like to pass judgment because I didn't know but that's a good point. Yeah, props to Christopher and Greg again. They put in the English first mentality, and they don't only preach it. They put their money where their mouth is when it comes to putting the English first, and that's why I really appreciate and respect what Greg and Christopher are doing. That's awesome. I didn't know that part. So going into the last round, so we can't say the lakes on the second or third round, but the fourth round, final round, right? Can we mention that one?
Absolutely, yeah.
Which one was that one?
So the Brazos River.
Oh, Brazos River, that's right.
Below Possum Kingdom, yeah. And it gets a lot of fishing, it gets a lot of pressure. The question isn't whether or not the bass are there, because they're definitely there. It's just whether or not you can make them bite. So I kind of knew that going into it. I looked after I found out that I was moving on Saturday and I had to fish again on Sunday for the final 4. I started looking at the weather and I saw it was going to be like 15-mile-an-hour winds like all over the state. So I kind of didn't want to have to be fighting that wind all the time on a big lake. So I decided to go fish a river. And the Brazos is a famous bass fishing river. I fished it when I was a kid. I haven't fished it recently, but I kind of knew there's some good fishing there, and I have a good idea of where I can go to try to find them. So that's what I did. And I started off in the morning throwing a topwater, and I fished my way all the way down about, several miles to my spot. And then I decided to switch over to a glide bait, and I think it was my first cast with a glide bait that I caught my 20. I caught a 20-incher on my first cast, and then I caught a 19.5 on my third cast. So with a glide bait, so it was just on. And after that, I just ran with that the whole day and covered a bunch of water. And I was fortunate enough to trick some more big ones into biting it.
What is it? Is that your favorite technique favorite bait using the glide bait?
Man, it's hard to say. I mean, my favorite bait used to be a frog, and then it used to be a Senko, and then it used to be a spinnerbait.
It's whatever catches fish, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like what's gonna work for me on this day. But if I have to choose one thing, I'm probably gonna choose a glide bait, just because you get to watch them eat it. You know what I mean? And that's something you don't really get to do a whole lot. You get to watch them eat it with a frog because it's a topwater, but you don't ever really get to see those 5, 6, 8 pounders come up and just flash on it. You know what I mean? And that's one of those deals where a glide bait is just a whole lot of fun. It's definitely my favorite way to fish at the moment.
Seems like you're pretty good at it. How confident are you in it? Like when you think the glided bait is on, how comfortable are you going into a tournament thinking, oh yeah, I got this?
It's one of those deals where a lot of people think if you're throwing a glide bait, you're swinging for the fences.
Mm-hmm.
And that is true in a sense, but it's also it just has a lot of drawing power. And I feel like I have a lot of confidence in that drawing power, that even if I don't exactly catch the fish is going to show itself to me, and I'm going to know exactly where it lives, so I can come back around and try to catch them another way. So just for exploring new water and trying to figure out where the big bass live in any body of water, a glide bait is definitely one of the best choices you can throw. I have a lot of confidence in it. I've actually only been fishing it this year, so this is my first year throwing it. There's a few techniques and a few little secrets that I don't want to give everything away, but the main thing is just cast it really far and reel it really slow, and give those bass every opportunity in the world to come up and put their mouth on it.
Cool. That's a good point. I was hoping you spilled the beans a little bit on that one. I've never had a lot of luck with the glide bait. I always like throw it a little bit, not have luck, then I'll put it away. Like if in the first few minutes I don't feel a bite, then it's like, eh. But I want to get more confidence. There's some great glide baits out there. And that's definitely one of the things that I like to get better at using glide bait, because it is a big fish magnet. And now that fall season is coming, I think that's one of the best times. Now, I heard, like I said, I'm not an expert. I've heard that it's one of the best times to throw a glide bait out there.
Yeah, I like right after the spawn is a good time, after they've spawned and they've kind of pulled back out onto those, stopping points or stop signs, as people say. That's a really good time for the S-Waver. And then, just like you said, right now in the fall, when they're kind of feeding up, those bass are lazy. They don't get big from chasing all those little minnows around the bank. They get big by sitting back, waiting for some big, dumb trout or something to swim by, and that's my secret, man. That's my secret technique, and that's what won this tournament for me. So.
Cool, man. That's awesome. How intimidating for you was it to go against Isham, Taft, and Marcus Coates, especially considering the tear that Marcus Coates has been on in the last few months? Sure.
I mean, I felt like I was definitely the underdog in this tournament in the Final Four, but at the same time, I've caught a lot of fish on an S-Waver. I've caught a lot of fish in general, and I had every confidence in the world that I was going to be able to go out there and put up a good bag, and that's all I was worried about. I wasn't really worried about anybody else. I was just thinking about, how do I go out and catch 5 good ones tomorrow? So that's what I did. I just went out to the Brazos and got lucky, kind of. But you can say it's luck if you catch one, but if you catch, I think I caught 6 on a glide bait or something like that. So I kind of had them figured out a little bit.
What was the water temperatures at when you were throwing that glide bait? Do you remember? Like, how was the water condition, general clarity, water temperatures, depth?
So there's going to be a caveat to this, because the river that I was fishing, the section of the Brazos I was fishing is really cold because it comes from the bottom of PK.
Okay.
So the water coming out of the dam is probably, I don't know, I want to say like maybe 65, 60 degrees. Mm-hmm. It's pretty chilly, considering we're in August or September now. It's pretty chilly. God, it's October, isn't it?
Just today got your big one synced up on you one by one day.
Yeah, my birthday is tomorrow, and I'm like,
oh man, nice. Yeah. How old are you gonna be?
I'm gonna be 29.
Really? 29th, man. That's good. What are the plans for tomorrow then? It's Friday.
Me and my girl are gonna go camp out, maybe do a little pre-fishing for the Lone Star Throwdown
Nice.
down on Inks. Yeah, so I think we're gonna go check out Lake Buchanan, Inks, and LBJ.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
Best of luck out there.
I appreciate it.
Awesome, cool. So, so how was we talked about a little bit of the water conditions. It was like, in the, what is it, like the low 60s?
Yeah, it's pretty chilly, low 60s, I would say. And it just depends because it's going to be colder coming from the dam, but as you get downriver, it starts to warm up a little bit. And, in those deeper pools, it kind of gets to that's probably the warmest spot is those deeper pools. But, yeah, low 60s up to 70 maybe. And those bass were just on. I was actually down there in that same area like in June, and there were still bass on beds.
Really? Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, because the water is so cold.
Exactly.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
No, I was bank fishing on the Trinity River in downtown Fort Worth. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't get any. Again, I thought the bite was going to be more active with water cooling off and the temperatures cooling off, but it hasn't. Like, it's taken a little bit longer. So I started throwing wacky rig Senko, and I caught one. And when I looked at it, the bottom of the tail was kind of all bloodied out. When they start fanning and I was thinking, man, I wonder if they're spawning again. Because I've heard of places in Texas where they actually spawn, like in spring and in fall, early fall or late fall, depending. How whether it's in Texas, summer can go all the way down to almost November, and then all of a sudden we had, what was it, a couple of years ago, summer was in pretty much May, and it ended, fall started somewhere in mid-August. That was about 2 or 3 summers ago. But anyways, I caught it. I took a picture of it. I'm like, man, I wonder if it was spawning, because it had that tail, kind of like eroded on the bottom and a little and reddish, irritated. So I was like, oh, it could be setting up nests again.
Yeah, probably was. I actually caught my PB on a bed this year on Lake Benbrook, and it was, I don't know, it was probably, I didn't get a weight, but it was 22 and a half inches and complete, just as fat as you could be as a fish. Me and my buddies were guessing probably just a little under 8 pounds, but I caught it on a jig, and it was the same deal, man. They were just on beds, and that's one of my favorite ways to catch them. You sit here and you're like, oh, is the glide bait your favorite bait? And I'm like, yeah, but not when they're spawning.
Yeah.
Or not in the middle of summer, so it just depends. But it's definitely, if I had to pick only one way to catch them, a glide bait is going to be the way that I prefer to.
Yeah, definitely. I love Benbrook. It's a nice lake, and definitely a lot of biggest. I went once, I caught a few, but the few that I caught were pretty big. Somewhere in the 18 and 20 inch. And they were out deep. It was last summer, I think it was. Now I just remember what the bottom of that river. I thought it was the Brazos River. Actually, it was the Red River out of Texoma.
Okay, yeah.
Texoma Dam. Yeah, that was old carp and gar on the bottom of that Red River. I was like, yeah, there's no bass here. This is old carp and gar, man. But yeah, it was in Brazos now that I remember. Yeah, Brazos is a pretty cool. Yeah, I have to check out on the bottom. I haven't gone to PK or the Brazos in that section, but it's definitely one of my favorite lakes. Not lakes, rivers here in Texas.
Man, if you want to get the best experience for the Brazos, do the 20-mile trip from the dam down to Rochelle's. That'll just
out of PK.
Yeah, look up Rochelle's. I don't know if you've ever heard Rochelle's, but yeah, they do shuttles and canoe rentals and all that good stuff. But you put in at the 16 bridge and you float down 20 miles to Rochelle's. It's like most people can do it in 2 days, but I like to do it in 3 days. You stay 2 nights on the river and basically just fish slowly the whole way down for 3 days. And that's what I started doing when I was a kid with my parents, and that's really what drove me into bass fishing. So if you want the full Brazos experience, definitely hit up that 20-mile trip.
Nice. And they pick you up at the bottom and bring you back to the car?
Absolutely, yeah.
Nice. I'll have to check it out. I didn't know that.
Yeah, man. give them a call. It's and just
I wonder. I know Guillermo Gonzalez and Matt do some tours.
Yes.
Bass fishing tour. I'm wondering, it's probably one of the spots because I see some of the video. I'm like, yeah, that looks like the Brazos River. But again, it could be the Trinity River or whatever the river around. But yeah, I wonder if that's one of the places they could do. So I know they used to do that.
I'm sure that they will take people down on that stretch. I think I actually heard Matt tell me once that he takes people below Lake Whitney.
Yeah.
Not just right below the lake. I think he's got private access on.
Yes, that's what I've heard.
That's a ways down from Lake Whitney, but any stretch of the Brazos has big fish, so you can go down anywhere and you'll catch them. So
there's a video of some dudes. It was on winter, and they went to the bottom, like right at that pool that's at the bottom. It's a concrete pool at the bottom of Whitney Lake. And they actually game warden kicked them out, but before they did, on the glide bed, if I remember correctly, they caught this huge striper right at that pool just before they got kicked out. And that area over there is full of stripers too. Big stripers.
The S Waver is actually a good striper lure. That a lot of people throw it for stripers just because it's so big and just looks like what they're eating. But man, the the Brazos is full of big bass, whether you're talking about stripers or largemouth, or I even caught some spotted bass. I'd really like to see if there's any big spotted bass in the Brazos. That would be pretty cool. I'm sure they'd eat at S Waver too.
I wouldn't be surprised. I think Whitney holds the lake for the biggest smallmouth bass, but they really I'm wondering what happened, because you see the records, it's all in the mid-90s, I think 94, 92, and things, the calendar turned to 2000. There hasn't really been a big smallmouth bass for the last 30 years now here in Texas, especially on Whitney. So I'm wondering what's going on there, if they don't stock them anymore, but they used back in the 90s. If you look at the records, it's especially on Whitney Lake, there was 5-7 pound smallmouth bass, but it was all in the mid-90s.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with that. Could have something to do with the fish kills that they had. Just more people fishing in general. Texas isn't exactly the best environment for smallmouth. No. Just because it gets so hot, and we are on a bit of a warming trend in general, but I caught one in Broken Bow not the other day, but several months ago. It was in the middle of summer, and I caught a smallmouth, and it literally died. I caught it, pulled it up to the surface, and it just died because it was so hot. I mean, they were just not doing good in that lake at that time.
Yeah, that's sad.
Yeah,
the numbers. Grapevine, I think last year broke its own record twice in 1 month. I was talking to Grant out of Fun and Sun Tackle right here at Highway 10, and he was telling me that one of the guys that is a big fan of Fun and Sun Tackle was showing pictures. It broke, it went from 4.5 pounds on February, and by the end of February, somebody else caught another one that was 5.5 pounds, something like that, which I think that's a lake record for Lake Grapevine. So Lake Grapevine apparently is on the rise as far as smallmouth bass, but it's pretty much the only one lately.
Yeah, I've heard about it. I haven't ever been on Lake Grapevine, which is weird.
You've never been to Lake Grapevine, really? You're so close to it.
I know. It's
Lake Grapevine. It's just way too many pleasure boaters for me. Yeah. Way too many pleasure boaters for me. You'll see one or two bass boats. Out of all the lakes that I've been there, I've seen a lot of kayaks. I think Grapevine has, because of the concentration, it's right in the middle of the DFW Metroplex. For those that don't live here, it's right in the middle of Dallas and Fort Worth, which kind of like sister cities. And in between the Dallas and Fort Worth, again, if you don't live in Texas, a huge metroplex. And right in the middle, north of it, is Grapevine. So it's just, especially on the weekends, I don't touch Grapevine on the weekends with a 10-foot pole, man, because it's just way too many pleasure boaters, jet skis. And usually the smallmouth will hang out at the at the dam, and that's where all the pleasure boaters with all the wakeboards and all the jet skis hang out. So it's like, yeah, it's not. I don't.
Yeah, I used to fish all those lakes. Like I used to fish like Eagle Mountain and
Yeah.
Pembroke and Lake Worth, and those kind of lakes. They get a lot of pleasure boaters just because of where they're located.
Yeah.
I've kind of really started to get away from those places.
Yeah.
I still fish Pembroke because there's giant bass in Pembroke.
Yeah,
but,
there are.
I started getting away from those places just because, I kind of want to get away from everybody. And man, the other day on Sunday when I was on the Brazos, I mean, I launched pretty early, but I was the only one on the river for like 2 or 3 hours. So that, I mean, I had the whole river to myself for a while, and it worked out pretty well for me. But yeah, I don't like to fish in crowds if I can help it. That being said, I do have a lot of confidence fishing behind people. I don't really let that mess with me and think, oh, he's already thrown in there, I can't catch him. Because, and you'll see that, man, on my video from the Brazos River. You'll see I threw into my first spot with the top water, and I worked it through there 2 times and didn't get a bite. And most people would have said, all right, they're not there, and moved on. And I was like, no, let me throw the glide bait in there. And then first cast with the glide bait, I got a bite. So just, they saw my top water, but they just didn't want it. So
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, that I'm the same way. I don't fish on the week. Thankfully, my job allows me to fish during the week. So I don't go unless I'm doing a tournament, I don't even touch the water on the weekends. Because unless again it's a couple of friends invite me, hey, let's go do this, or let's go fishing, or if I got a tournament, because they're all on the weekends. But other than that, I really don't get on the water on the weekends. Just I don't want to deal with it. I just don't want to deal with the crowds, man.
Yeah.
It gets out of hand, especially on summer.
Yeah.
Winter, it might be different,
Right. I had a couple of boats roll up on me on Pembroke this year. Just, like I'm catching fish on a spot and they roll up right on the spot. And I'm just like, what's up, dude? Like, I can hit you in the head with my crankbait. Don't you think you're a little close,
Oh, have you ever been to Lake Louisville?
No, I haven't. But
Okay, Lake Louisville, there's some spots that are notorious for hybrids and sand bass. Dude, it gets crazy. You see anybody on us? It's like, it's crazy to me because of to me, the way I view the fishing culture is like, if there's somebody out there, I'm not getting in there. Right. If they found the spot, good for them. I'll stay out the outreach, maybe the school moved my way, whatever. But over there, man, nobody cares. They'll be right on top of each other.
Yeah,
it's crazy. I go with a buddy of mine that has a 14-foot long, and he don't care. He'll just roll up next. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? But the guys around don't even bother, because it's kind of like, yeah, this is where the school is. So everybody, you'll see 5 boats. Yeah. And don't ever, if you get a big bite, yeah, it's funny because we get a big bite, just like play it off as you're being snagged. Oh crap, I got snagged. Because they'll hear you if you go like, oh man, I got a big one. Forget it, man. They'll come out of the woodwork and they'll plant themselves like literally 5-10 feet, and they'll just throw that jigging spoon right next to your boat. It's crazy. It's crazy, man.
That's just the way the fishing's getting to be these days.
Yeah,
close to the population, populated areas.
Yeah, man. I don't. When I'm on the kayak, I've gone to Lake Louisville to do some sand bass and hybrid, but I try to keep it to myself. I just like, if I see boats, but no, man, when they're on boats, when I go with my buddy on the boat, he don't care. Nobody cares. It's just right on top of each other. I'm like, nah, I don't know. Cross my screen a little bit, but it is what it is. I guess the sand bass fishing culture is different than the bass fishing culture.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
It is very true. Awesome. So other than bass fishing, man, what else do you like to fish for here in Texas?
I've actually never caught a redfish before, which is kind of crazy, but that's something that I've always wanted to do, is go catch reds. I've caught a few speckled trout here and there. And, I don't really have another species of fish other than bass. I mean, largemouth is my favorite thing to catch. I don't mind catching stripers. I don't mind catching sand bass, but I even have caught crappie on Benbrook. I found a good crappie hole last year, and I caught a limit in like an hour or
Nice.
2 hours or something. But man, bass fishing, largemouth bass is just under my skin. It's in my heart, you know, and that's what I love to do. So that's pretty much what I do all the time.
It's ingrained in, especially in the Texas culture. Just bass fishing is. I'm trying to remember who I was talking to on the podcast, but I like Lake Fork. One of the things that I love about going to Lake Fork, it's not just a lake. While I'm driving, Lake Fork to me is like a 2-hour drive, but while I'm out there and coming back, it's like literally when you leave like in the DFW Metroplex and all of a sudden you drive to Benbrook, which is not that far. Again, 2-hour drive is not that far in my opinion.
Yeah,
You're like going through like a time machine, because all of a sudden you're at this place where it's like back in the late 70s, early 80s,
right.
and it's all bass. Like the culture there, the small towns around Lake Fork are just like, it's just bass, you know, it's just a huge bass culture. Everything revolves about bass fishing, and I love that.
Right.
I love that's, you know, just because, I don't know, it's just going out there and just completely different subculture out there.
Yeah. So me and my friend Hayden actually fished on OH Ivy earlier this year for I think it was the first KBBT bracket, and it's the same kind of deal, man. You get out there and you're just out in the middle of nowhere, and literally the only people around you are bass fishermen. You know, like there's 100 bass boats at the ramp, and everything is just built on that one thing around that lake. You know, you're actually gonna hate me for saying this, but I've never fished on Lake Fork.
Really?
Yeah.
My God.
I know, man.
We got to hit Lake Fork, man. You have to go to Lake Fork.
You know, I've only been kayak fishing like seriously for about 1.5 years now. So really, I haven't had a chance to get out to all these places. You know, Lake Fork's been on my bucket list forever, but I've just never, you know, been out there. I've been on Athens. I've been on, you know, Richland Chambers.
Athens is a good lake, yeah.
I've been on all these lakes, but I've never been on Fork. And that's something I will hope to change maybe here soon. I don't know. Maybe I'll get out there before it gets to be too cold and I'm busy duck hunting, you know?
Yeah, Lake Fork is, if you've never been to Lake Fork, think of it as Ray Roberts, that flooded timber area on the west. I'm trying to think, I think that's the west side, upper west side of the lake, even though the whole west side of Lake Ray Roberts, where it's all flooded timber, that's right. Pretty much Lake Fork.
Yeah. I've heard all the horror stories about people breaking their props and their fins and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
On Lake Fork, and I've been a fan of bass fishing forever, so I've watched the Bassmaster Classics and the Elite Series and all that good stuff, and you know, every time I've seen them on Fork, you know, just this last year I was watching who was it that caught that 10-pounder on a dang spinning rod, you know, and you know, I'm watching that thing and I'm like, man, I got to get out there, but then I just haven't made time to get out there. So
it is the one thing that I've noticed about there, like, it also depends on the season, but example, on Lake Grapevine, I've caught a couple of like 19, 20 inches, and Ray Roberts too. I caught my biggest one. It was a 22 and a quarter, 22 and a half. I'm going to say 22 and a quarter because I hate exaggerating and then being called out on it. So I think it was 22 and a quarter. But it was one of those things where it's like, okay, that wasn't much of a fight. Like, yeah, it's a great fish, but that wasn't big of a fight. On the KBBT, I caught my last fish was like 5 minutes before the tournament ended. I caught a 12-incher, and I saw it jump at the first, and I was like, yeah, it's not that big. But my God, the fight that little dink put was like, I could have sworn I was catching at least a 4-pounder.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about Lake Fork, man. I've never caught a fish at Lake Fork that didn't just put like a smack on it. You know, like you don't get, at least my experience, I've never had this little subtle bite that it's always all or nothing bite with those bass over there, man. It's just they hit it hard and they'll fight you, you know, for like until, you know, they'll just fight you and you think you caught a bigger fish than what you got, but it's just there's something about an attitude on those Lake Fork bass that is, I don't know, I've never seen it at any other lake.
Yeah, man. That's just a sign of how healthy the bass fishery is
Yeah.
there. You just know that it's super healthy for the bass there. The same is true at OHIV. I noticed the same thing. You know, you'd hook a 15 or 16 incher and you'd think, man, I got a 20 on, you know. And you'd get up to the boat and you're like, dude, how are you not a 20 incher? You know, you you know, but and that's, you know, and then you catch an actual 20 incher or like my buddy Brian, he caught a 25-inch bass down there.
Wow.
11 pounds and 11.39 pounds. Yeah. And that was an insane fish. That's the biggest bass I've ever seen in my life. He actually dove in out of his kayak after it and inflated his little Hobie life jacket. I've got a bunch of pictures. It's pretty funny because he's sitting in the water with this big old yellow jacket, you know, inflated around his neck, and he's holding up a 12-pound bass, man. It's just unbelievable.
Man, unofficially, my biggest bass was, and I say unofficially because I was just starting. I didn't even have a kayak back then. I was just bank fishing, drop shot minnow. And I caught and it must have been a bass that had just finished spawning or nesting because it was super thin. The withers are just gone up. But it must have been, I'll have to have somebody that's really good because obviously I'm going to be biased. I'm going to say it's 30 inches, but it's obviously not. But I think it's definitely got to be more than 22 inches. That was my biggest bass. But it was one of those things where I thought I was snagged because it didn't even put up a fight. It was just like until I got it actually to a shore, never even jumped, never even tried to make a run for it. So it's funny, man. Sometimes you get those big fish, but maybe they're so old, or if you got them after the spawn when they're just like dead tired, you know, they haven't eaten for 2 weeks. They're thin. They don't, you're like, okay, I expected this. If I ever caught a fish this side, it would be like the most epic fight. And it turns out it wasn't, but
yeah, right.
Pretty cool.
You didn't have to dive in the water off your kayak after it, did you?
No.
I got to give a shout out to my buddy Brian Pierce for that. I mean, just the absolute dedication he had to jump in. We were fishing treetops that were probably sitting in about 12, 15 feet of water, actually, because that's just the way the OHIV sets up. Mm-hmm. And this bass was on a bed, and he was tucked up underneath all these little trees and stuff like that. And Brian casted his little weightless fluke like way back in there, like maybe 15, 20 yards back into all this thick stuff. And I think as soon as it hit that water, that 12-pounder just like ate it, you know. And so then he's got a freaking 12-pounder on with like 15-pound line up over tree branches and stuff like that, you know. And I saw him from across the lake. I saw him pull his thing and his life jacket inflate. So in my mind, I thought something was he was in trouble or something was wrong. So I started heading towards him. And by the time I got there, he's in the water and he's got the fish by the mouth. And he's like, I did it. You know?
Well, was it that he broke off, or it was just that it was
No, it had gotten
tangled
around a tree branch, you know, because he cast it over a bunch of brush and stuff like that to get to this little spot. And I think he had it dangling from a tree branch for a couple minutes before he got to it. And that's the funniest thing too, just thinking back on it, because I didn't even realize he had a fish. You know, I just saw him in the water with his life jacket on, and then I got to him, and he's like, I got her, you know, and I'm like, what did you know? Oh, you got a fish, you know? And I'm like, all right, you know, how big is it? Hold it up, and he like, I can barely see it. I'm like, how big is it? And he's like, oh, I don't know, maybe like 6 or 7 pounds, you know? That's what he said, and
like, oh,
like,
maybe.
Let me see it. So he like pulls it up, you know, and I'm like, oh my God, dude, that's like a 12-pounder. Just an unbelievable fish catch, and I'm super lucky that I got to witness that.
Yeah, I always get nervous using those weightless flukes and all that, just because, like, just because they can wrap around, you know, on their dock. Like, it's easy to skip a Senko on a spin cast combo. Right. But if you're using light line, it's very possible he's just gonna wrap around something. Like me, I don't like to, when it's like a marina where it has all those crisscross cables going around, I don't flip a Senko on a spinning setup on, you know, 5-6 pound fluoro, because I'll be lucky to get it out. But if it's like a house boat dock, those houses are on the um, lakefront, and they'll have, a boat dock that's just 4 sticks to not a lot of stuff going around crisscrossing. Then I'll throw in a little. Then I'll skip a little finesse technique there. But yeah, it's one of those things. I had it on Grapevine. I'm actually won with that bass, big bass of the day on the Slay Nation. It was trying to think. I think it was almost. I think it might have been the 19-incher. I have to check. But I caught it same thing. It got wrapped around the Lake Grapevine because this summer has not rained at all. Mm-hmm. So the water level was really down. So I saw this twig forest or garden that I usually see on the graph, and I see the top of it now. So I'm like, perfect. I don't even have to use the graph. I know where it is. So I cast it, boom, immediately, and it got wrapped around those twigs. And I actually had to get my hand in and it's kind of like just move my hand around until finally get him to come out. Right. So I was like, well, it was worth it. It got me $70. Right. So it was worth getting it.
So that kind of brings me back to one more thing I want to talk about. The S-Waver. So the fish that you catch with this are the same fish that you would catch with like a jerkbait or like a finesse bait, which is cool because, I throw this thing on 50-pound braid to a 20-pound leader. So when if you hook the same fish that I caught on this with a little jerkbait, good luck getting it in, man. You got it on 8-pound line or 6-pound line or something, and it's just going to be a rodeo trying to get that thing in. I can get the same fish to bite this thing and then just horse them into the kayak, So that's another reason why I like the S-Wavers a lot.
Let me ask you this. Now that we're going full circle with the glide baits, what setup do you use for that? You already said the line and everything, but what kind of reel, what kind of rod do you use for it?
Sure. So the rod that I use it on is a Dobbins Fury 7'3". So it's a 7'3" heavy. It's kind of like a jig rod, Okay. And I actually throw a jig on the same rod. The cool thing is with a kayak, I like to be kind of versatile. So I could throw on like a jig or even a frog on the same rod, and throw it with straight braid. And then if I want to throw the glide bait, I just tie on like a 10-foot section of mono leader, and I'll throw the glide bait on there and catch them just like everything else. It works great.
Nice. And what reel do you use, you said?
The reel I have is a Shimano SLX DC.
Oh, nice.
That's what I caught all this on Sunday. Yeah, it's pretty nice. I actually lost a Corrado DC the other day, and that kind of broke my heart. Yeah, man.
Yeah. Oh, that hurts.
Yeah, it's painful, but I made it up for it by winning on Sunday. So.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I did definitely. But yeah, that's the kayak version of getting kicked in the nuts. I actually lost. I went to Wheeler Lake with Dustin. First cast, I lost the palm plate on my Revo X EXD. Yeah. I'm more of a Shimano guy, but the one reel that I love from Abu Garcia is the Revo EXD. Just because I can cast country mile with that thing if I'm using a crankbait, especially deep cranking. But I don't know. I guess the way I palm it, I kind of like unlock the latch, and it just I see that plate going, and I'm like, oh my god, no. So I'm gonna go to, I forgot the name of that place here in downtown Dallas where you can order parts. So
right. My buddy Steven bought 2 Revo SXs yesterday for $17 a piece.
Really?
Yeah.
Damn, you see, tell him I'll put him 34.
Yeah. Academy messed up again, like they.
Yeah, they done that a lot. I've seen that. I've actually got a reel just like that. A buddy of mine says, "Hey man, they just got it missed." Like, give me one. This is like, you have left-handed. It doesn't matter. Just give me 2 and I'll sell the other one if that's the price. So we actually got a couple. So the Academy's known to do that here. I don't know why. Okay, we are back. We have some technical difficulties. But yeah, we're talking about you got those, your friend got you got those pretty cheap reels at Academy. That happened to me too. A friend of mine, we got them. I don't know why Academy has done that a couple of times. I heard other people have the same thing where they just misprice it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Somebody's getting fired there.
Probably not. I'd probably just chalk it up on the loss column and keep on going.
Right. So anyways, man, Ross, I really appreciate you taking the time. I know I had you almost for an hour now, so I don't want to take too much of your time. And, I appreciate you taking your time off to join us at the show. But before I let you go, tell us a little bit of who do you want to thank? If you got, whether it's families, companies that have helped you out and all that. But and also let us know, where can people follow you? I thought you mentioned that you got the KBBT, those catches, you got it uploaded on YouTube. So where can people follow you on Instagram and YouTube and any other social media? And again, if you want to thank anybody else there for helping you out and influencing you, take your time.
Absolutely. So you can find me on YouTube at Ross Pinkerton. You can find me on Instagram at ross.pinkerton and Facebook at Ross Pinkerton. I actually did manage to catch every fish catch on film for my channel. So yeah, I'm about to upload the video from the Brazos River on Sunday. So y'all are probably going to want to check that out.
Definitely.
Just an unbelievable day of fishing. And I want to thank my girlfriend, Cassie Bevins. She really helps take care of the kids and everything at home while I go and do a bunch of fishing and stuff like that. So thanks, babe. I love you. And my parents, just for same thing, helping out with the kid, and then also for instilling the love for the outdoors in me at a young age. Just really helped put me on the right path, kept me out of trouble, some trouble. I still managed to find a little bit.
Always, you got to learn somehow, right?
Right.
Can't always be told.
That's it, man. But yeah, man, that's pretty much it. Thank you for having me on. Thanks
thank you
to everybody at KBBT for running that awesome tournament, and we'll see you around, man.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much again for joining us. Do appreciate it, man. And you live kind of like right around where I live, so we gotta get you Lake Fork, and then you gotta take me to those third and fourth round, or second and third round spots that you can't mention on the air.
Absolutely. I'll take you to those spots, and if you want to hit the Brazos, let me know.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much. This has been the Bass, Kayak, and Beers segment on the Paddle and Fin Network. Once again, with my special guest, Ross Pinkerton, aka the Bass Baron of Texas. Thank you again for checking us out, and if you made it this far, go check out DouglasOutdoors.com for the full lineup of rods, and check out where your nearest authorized dealer is. If you're going to be out there on the water this weekend, enjoy your time. Hope you slay them, and be safe for your PADs.
Thanks for tuning in to another killer episode on Paddle and Fin. Don't forget to go check out our website at paddle_and_fin.com. Don't forget to check out the YouTube channel at Paddle and Fin. If you got a question, comment, want to hear from a future guest on a future episode, feel free to email us at paddle_and_fin@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Paddle and Fin on Facebook and Instagram. Shout out to our show supporters, Angler. The Angler button and app just makes for a better time on the water and creates a virtual logbook for every fishing outing out on the water. Shout out to Rocktown Adventures, located in Northern Illinois, for all your kayaking, camping, and hiking needs. TRC Covers, protect your investment. Ketch Products, shout out to Ketch Products. Go to KetchProducts.com and put the Paddle and Fin logo directly on your catch board. Shout out to JigMasters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to JigMasters.com, use promo code PNF20 and save 20% on all your jig and tackle needs.